Chair of the 45th Legislative District.
Yeah, please use the microphone.
We are live.
Ken Albinger, Chair of the 45th District Democrats. I would like to move that we accept the report as a preliminary report and proceed to complete the report.
Second. The chair understands your motion to be not a motion that the charges are proven or unproven, but simply a motion that it be accepted that there is a reason to proceed to the next step of the process. Is that your motion?
Yeah.
Yes. All right. And there was a second. Is there a debate? Gloria, I think you're up first.
Yeah.
Gloria, microphone. Yeah, hold up to the microphone. Mr. Chair.
Even louder. So a point of clarification, I guess. Can the motion be amended? First is my first question. And if it can, I would like to do so.
Well, the motion can be amended. I'm not clear that you have speaking rights at this point in the meeting because you're not a voting member of the body, are you, tonight?
I have the 5th District. I'm one of the 3 representatives. From
Right. Are the other 3 here?
The credential was ceded to me.
All right. If you have one of the 3 voting credentials, then yes, you may make an amendment.
Yes. If this is my chair, he says, I have it in my hand.
All right.
Okay. So my amendment is this, that we thank the vice chairs for their work. That was great, the work that they've done so far. And I think in the interest of clarity and peace, that having an alternate body be responsible for the next step in the process might be the best thing. So I would like to amend the motion that we establish the Leadership Council as the body that takes that next step, and that those people are appointed by this group to lead that effort.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
So let me first restate the motion, then I'll take the point of order. As I understand it, your motion is to amend the pending motion to ask for a further investigation to be done by the Leadership Council, and to the extent that there are vacancies on the Leadership Council, for this body to fill those positions. Is that a correct statement?
That is a correct statement. I think that, and
before you debate, there was a point of order. I just wanted to make sure I had the question.
I would highly object to the Leadership Council doing that because our bylaws require that the county chair the Leadership Council, and I would not like to chair my own investigation.
Right. So that's not a point of order, but I had previously indicated that the Leadership Council meets at the call of the chair and so on and so forth. You could ask it to do something else as a group, but as defined under the bylaws, it is an advisor to the chair. So now.
So we need to call it something else, right?
Yeah. Okay. If you wanted to use the same people, you could use the same people if your motion passed.
Okay, and so just to be clear, there are 3 things that need to be completed, and I just wanted to add that to my amendment. One is that the finances need to be completely reviewed. We need a fiscal audit, which requires a professional to do that. 2 is that we really need to look at the employment issue and the termination to make sure that we're not open to liability. So it would be great if we could have a professional do that. And 3rd, to complete the investigation to include recommendations on next steps to the greater body. Because at their own admission, there are still some gaps in the report that we've reviewed.
Okay, stripping down your amendment, and then I'll ask for a second. As I understand your amendment, it is to ask the Leadership Council, or at least the people who would otherwise be on the Leadership Council, to do either a supplemental or replacement investigation, whichever the case may be, the scope of which would be, number 1, an investigation with respect to any financial assertions that were made, including possibly an audit of the books. 2nd, consultation with counsel to review whether or not the termination was problematical from a legal standpoint. And 3rd, whether or not any charges should be deferred. Is that correct? Right. Now, is there a second for that amendment?
Point of information.
Is there a second for the? Is there a second?
Second.
It hasn't been seconded yet, so it's not yet up here. Is there a second?
Point of
All right, it has
information.
now been seconded. Before I take that, I want to hear the point of information request.
Either to the chair or the maker of the motion, given the financial situation the treasurer has reported us in, who will pay for these professional services?
I
That's
can't,
one of my
Well,
amendment.
okay,
Yeah.
I can't specifically tell you that, but I have been assured that resources will be made available to King County.
Assured by who?
Well, so let me, again, to cut this short, you're not specifying the method of payment, that you're personally going to write the check if your sources don't appear.
Point of information.
Was that your motion?
That's my motion.
That did not answer my point of information. Mr.
I know,
Chair.
but it wasn't on the
Point of
roll
information?
question. Yeah.
The leadership council is defined,
Aye, the leadership council is defined in the bylaws as the elected officers and 4 LD chairs, 1 from each geographic area of the county. Could we please identify who the current members of the leadership council are?
I suspect that they don't exist, but I may be wrong about that.
That's
They
correct.
exist.
No,
There's
they-
no
no.
point in,
No, they don't.
they don't exist, then that's going to be difficult to appoint.
Mr. Stevens, and then I need to work my way around the room. Yeah.
So, this is to Gloria. I thought when response had been given regarding the leadership council, your motion did not name the leadership council, but actually named a group.
It was the people who would otherwise constitute the leadership council, and if there were vacancies in those positions, that they would be appointed by this group. That was the motion I restated. Now, Sarah Jane, you had a
Point of information.
where's the point of information? That better be a valid point. So.
Are you going to limit the amount of time speaking in the interest of time? And if so, a timekeeper?
So, there are no standing rules of debate that I could find for this body. The only way that I can do that is, are you about to tell me there are standing rules of debate?
I'm going to make a motion that's going to
Or let
provide
me first
those.
make my motion.
How about handling these
The easiest way to deal with this is, unless there is objection, I'm going to alternate pro and con on these motions, and I'm going to ask you to limit yourself to 1 minute, and if there is a timekeeper who will volunteer, I'll take that timekeeper. If that's not an adequate set of rules of debate for you, then somebody can make a motion for further ones. And the chair, to my left, had previously indicated he wanted to make a motion, so you're first in
So
line.
my amendment.
Mr.
which
Chair-
is on
Just
the
a
floor.
moment. We're now trying to resolve, is there rules of debate? I'm going to, please, just hold yours in abeyance. You're first in line before we take the debate. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I move to establish rules of debate for 3 speakers pro, 3 speakers con, limited to 1 minute per piece, with 3 and 3.
Is there, the proposal is that debate be alternated between speakers, no more than 3 speakers on the side, no more than 1 minute each.
Second.
Is there objection to those rules? Otherwise,
point of clarification, I apologize. Can you clarify, are we debating the amendment now?
no, we're trying to establish what the rules of debate will be for debating the amendment. Is there objection to the proposed rules of debate? Seeing none, those will become the rules of debate, and hereafter it will take a 2/3 vote to suspend them. Now, Sarah Jane, you were next in line.
I am in great sympathy with the motion on the floor, with the one exception, which is a deal breaker to me, which is to call something an audit, which, as former executive director of a nonprofit and having dealt with a lot of this, an audit would cost a minimum of $10,000. We don't have it. And what we do in the 46 is have financial reviews by third parties who understand books, and we don't have to have a CPA to do this. So with that amendment, rather than calling for an audit, calling for a financial review, I would be happy to support this.
So, are you making a motion to amend the amendment?
Yes?
All right, there is a motion, is there a second to a motion to amend the proposed? Let me finish, pending amendment, to substitute the word financial review for financial audit. Now, is there a second? Second. Do we need debate on this, or is, all right, all in favor of that proposed amendment to the amendment? All opposed? Motion carries. Now we're back to the amendment as it has now been amended. Is there opposition to Gloria's amended amendment?
Point of information for clarity.
Yeah, point of information down front. Hold the debate.
I just want to clarify, the original motion was to accept the report as the initial report. It sounds like the amendment is to continue investigation with something that used to be called Leadership Council.
Yes.
Is that, my understanding is the initial motion would have meant we could proceed to a trial.
Yes.
The amendment that we're now debating is opposed to that, I believe, would continue the investigation, not go straight to a trial. I just want to make sure that's what happened.
It's not necessarily opposed to it, but would add some additional work before you got to the trial stage. You could, if you chose, pass the motion that is before you, the amendment, and at the same time say as a contingent matter you wanted to go ahead and figure out how you would do a trial if you got to that stage or some other things. It's not totally inconsistent, but in substance it is a totally different approach than what the chair of the 45th had proposed. Yeah, now, Mr. Irwin, you were next in line.
Yes, I speak against the amendment for two particular reasons. The first being that we're trying to cram three separate things as to actions that take place after whether or not we accept the documents that have been put forward to us as evidence. I think that each of these three must be considered separately, and I think the second reason why I would go against this is simply because we've already seen that at least two of the three items may not be financially viable for this organization in any way, shape, or form, thus obligating us to do something we cannot do.
Is there a speaker in favor of the amendment?
Oh, I speak. Point of clarification.
Yep. State your point.
I'm not up yet.
I just have a question. If we, are all of the people on the council objective, or are they, I guess, not have something into this for themselves?
If my understanding is correct, that the Leadership Council positions related to the district chairs have not been appointed, then you do not have any basis one way or the other of knowing whether they are objective. All you would know is that they would be district chairs.
So does that mean that they would be independently appointed?
The motion is to have them appointed by this body.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now,
So I want to speak in favor?
yeah, but let me first make sure that there's not somebody else who wants to speak in favor.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Is there a speaker in favor before I repeat, Gloria?
Can you just identify them?
Yes. It would be good if you identified yourself, because I don't know all the names in this place. Some of you I know, and some of you I don't, and I apologize for the implications of that. I realize I shouldn't do that.
My name is Patrick Alcorn. I'm from the 41st, but I'm actually reading something for Peace Keenan from the 48th. She's very ill and couldn't be here tonight, but she put a lot of work into it. Victims have fought for years to have their rights and access to due process be taken seriously. The travesty of the botched initial KCDCC investigation shows why so many allegations get tried in the court of public opinion.
Chair, that is not a pro or con statement.
I'm getting there.
Right. You should make sure that you do get there before the end. As they tell me in court, to tack a question mark on it at the end.
Okay, so it lays out her opinion on that, and then part two of her therefore is solicit the help of a two to three third-party neutrals, no official party members or leadership, to investigate and document the below, and then provide an initial report 30 days from start date to the executive board for further actions, accusations against chair, recent staff changes, financial concerns, etc. I just wanted her to be able to have a voice tonight, and this was the best chance for her to have that opportunity. So I speak in favor. This proposed amendment speaks to the heart of what she intended with this 4-page document, and so I'm just trying to give her a voice in this meeting.
I believe the content of the letter was consistent with the statement, support and was proper debate. Yes. Are you opposed?
Yes.
All right, go ahead. That's two. There's going to be one more speaker.
I am primarily opposed to the point that has already come up. We do not know who these people are. We are voting to appoint the people who would be the members of the Leadership Council, but they don't exist. We have no idea who we are putting in charge of this, except the two remaining vice chairs and the treasurer and the secretary. We do not have two other vice chairs. We do not have any of the chairs So we are basically voting to appoint a giant unknown. We should appoint some further body perhaps, but certainly not as in this amendment.
All right, speaker in favor, and if not, then Gloria can speak. Is there another speaker in favor? Gloria, did you want to speak?
Well, actually.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I see. Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I'm generally in favor of this motion. And I am because the report itself is incomplete. And I speak from the fuller report that we got, the draft memorandum that we got, and no analysis tying any of the findings to all the information that was given to us. We also don't have an actual rebuttal or opportunity for rebuttal from the accused. And I think before we go forward with anything, we need to do that. Oh, one more thing. The draft already laid out a conclusion about what should be done without hearing from the accused. And just fundamentally to me, talk about the cart before the horse. I don't want to put the hangman's noose in front of the tree and then you say, oh, and then we'll have a trial. Let's complete the investigative report, then decide what to do, having heard from everybody, including getting all the analysis together from the original report, but having an investigative body to do that.
There is one speaker against left, and I don't believe you've spoken yet tonight, Roger, and the other people whose hands I see have.
This is on the amendment of the amendment.
This is on the amendment. The amendment to the amendment passed, but we're now on the amended.
Hold on. This is about having the leadership council.
Right. That is the amendment, the proposed amendment is the leadership council amendment. The amendment that passed was substituting the word financial review for audit.
So I'm fine with the idea that there are more things, there are possibly additional things that need to be investigated. I think the leadership council is entirely the wrong body to be doing this.
Yeah.
Okay, let me be very clear who we're talking about here.
Yes.
The leadership council is Bailey, it is Orkida and Michael.
Right.
It is myself, Nancy, John, Jamie, and 4 district vice chairs yet to be selected. Keep in mind that there's been at least one district chair that's been blathering in the press about stuff. There's
talking out here right now.
Okay. There are issues of trust here. I mean, the chair is alleging that the vice chairs conducted a sloppy investigation. The vice chairs are alleging various things about the chair. This is the wrong group to be doing the investigation. This is common sense. I'm sorry. And also, I should point out, I am not trained in doing investigations. Okay? It's sort of like.
I think we're at the end of a minute. Let me advise you that if the only reason you would vote against this motion is you don't like the people that would be doing the second investigation, you can resubmit an amended version of the motion with a different group of people.
Which was I'm sorry to speak out in terms of points there.
Well,
but I do believe that we clarified.
We've had 3 speakers on each side, Gloria.
I'm just trying to clarify the motion itself that we're voting on. Because
I thought you had clarified that it was something like the leadership council.
I did. Well, no, the way that the motion was restated and put before the body is that it would be the leadership council or the same people that are on the leadership council. And since the officers presently are on the leadership council, they would be included in that universe.
So we do need to correct that.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
So can I amend the amendment?
Well, we're out of debate, and so we first need to vote on the amendment, and then it would not be dilatory if it was submitted in a different form. So, yeah. All right, all those in favor of the proposed amendment to the pending motion, the amendment, if carried, would make the main motion a motion to have further investigation done by the leadership council as defined in the body, with vacancies to be appointed by this group as opposed to the chair. Scope of the investigation to be a financial review of the books of the organization, a legal review by outside counsel of potential flaws in the termination of the executive director, and third, whether charges from the original, the short report that came from the preliminary investigative report, whether those charges should be preferred and go forward. In other words, supplement that investigation. That's as close as I recall. Yes.
Thank you for that restatement. My sense is that this body supports all of it except who does the investigation.
Well,
given that, do we vote for the motion or against the motion?
Right. As I believe I indicated before.
Call the question.
Just a moment. I hate explaining. Just.
Can it be divided?
All right. So we are out of debate, and as a result, nobody can take the floor to separate things or make amendments. They needed to do that during the amendment. So I'm going to take a vote on the amendment. As I indicated before, once the amendment is voted down, if it is voted down, if someone wants to resubmit it with a different group of people, I would not view that as dilatory. Further, let me just caution you, because it's getting late. Do not yell out, call the question. If you want to close debate, get in line, get yourself recognized, make a motion, and get a 2/3 vote to close debate, because otherwise all you do is make it hard for people to hear. Now, do I need to restate the amendment again? No. All of those in favor of the amendment, please raise your credential, and would the 2 microphone people help me count who has. All in favor of the amendment? Okay, that's a hard count. All those opposed? Okay, I think it fails. If anybody wants the division, go down the road and go to the bar. Yes, Miss Lori? Yeah.
Microphone.
Again, so I would like to motion that we establish a 4-person panel that is representative.
So let her state her motion, and then when I restate it, we can take up some of these questions, but...
As I said, a
one person at a
5-person.
My hearing is very bad these days. I'm sure I heard that the first time.
That is representative of the body and the community that we represent, which means that it is male identified, female identified.
Don't specify it. Just say 5.
Etc. And that they are tasked with 3 things: to work with a professional to do a fiscal review of the KCDCC financial books, to work with a professional to review the termination of the executive director to make sure that we aren't open to any liability, and to complete the investigation and make recommendation on potential actions to be taken as a result of the harassment claims filed against the chair. Those would be the 3 tasks that this group would be responsible for, and they need to complete their work by a date certain.
All right, so to clarify, just a minute, this is the same thing that was previously moved, except with a different group of people, and the addition, because I didn't hear it the first time, the addition of a date certain by which it would need to be completed. And I am assuming that your intent is that if this motion passed, you would then either make a motion or somebody else would make a motion for who those people should be, and what the date should be. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
All right, now, are you in opposition, Mr. Irwin? Your hand has been up the
I'm in
longest.
opposition only because the first thing we need to do is determine whether or not the evidence that has been put forward is considered legitimate. Take care of that, deal with this and other issues as separate motions, not as amendments to the motion, because all that does is complicate the process of what the first thing is that we need to do, which is to determine whether or not the evidence put forward is considered viable.
Well, I think in this instance, the vote answers that question, number 1, and number 2, it's an amendment, it's not a conclusion vote. So I do not think it's out of order. I will take that as debate against. Is there a debate in favor? Is there anyone in favor? Alec?
Yeah. I'd like to actually offer an amendment, and that is to answer the question of 5. 2 to be appointed by the chair.
Which chair?
Not me.
No.
I'm leaving town.
2 to be appointed by the chair. 2 to be appointed by the vice chair.
Do you mean David?
No, Bailey.
All right, okay.
I'm talking about the parties of interest. 2 to be appointed by the chair, 2 to be appointed by the vice chairs, and the 5th to be appointed by those 4.
So it's the redistricting commission.
What's done at times like,
All right. I'll restate what I understand the motion to be as an amendment, and then I'll ask for a second. I understand the motion to be to amend Gloria's proposed amendment to identify that the group of 5 people referenced in her amendment would be 2 to be appointed by Bailey Stover, 2 to be appointed by Michael Maddox and Orkita, and the 4 that are appointed would appoint the 5th, who, unlike the redistricting commission, would be a voting member as opposed to a non-voting.
Second.
Yeah. Now, there was a second to that. Is there debate on that amendment? Gloria.
Speak against.
All right.
Okay, hold on, let me.
I'm going to speak against that. Sorry, Alec, I love you. However, the intent of my motion, just to be clear, is to put forward an option that I think provides for A, neutrality, B, fairness, and C, provides credibility to the outcome. And if we continue to involve the same parties in the discussion, even if they are appointed by these parties, we won't get to a point where we can have some peace and resolution, because everybody will still be in their same factions, basically, representing their same interests. So I am against that motion.
Speaker in favor. Are you speaking in favor?
I'm in favor of this because I hate the assumption that because the 2 people in the amendment that can potentially propose that would be able to appoint objective people that they thought would be fair based on their perspective, because we're supposed to be a trusting group that's supposed to be able to do that stuff. That being said, that's really the reason why we're here, and I didn't interrupt you when you were speaking. Thank you. So I'm in full support of those people taking charge, and then I love the idea that then they come together and agree to yet another person that essentially they have to agree isn't as involved. So it has some there.
All right, is there a speaker opposed to the amendment to the amendment? Yes, your hand was up first, and I'll advise you that my basic rules of debate are is if there's nobody to alternate, we stop talking and we vote. So if you don't want to say anything, don't. But go ahead.
I think I'm opposed to this amendment because I believe that there should be neutral parties, somewhat neutral, or at least people who are not directly involved in order to, investigate this. So I just think that I respectfully disagree that the parties that are involved in the dispute should be the ones to resolve it. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Thank you.
Speaker in favor. Last speaker. Yes.
I just wanted to remind folks that if one of the contingencies of this motion is that they would work with a financial professional, that would be an objective person that would look at the books, and also just by the nature of how long it's taken us to get through this investigative report and still not decide the veracity of this report, the idea that we would have to sit here and elect 5 neutral people that that people in this room think are neutral is borderline impossible. So I think it would make sense to have the folks directly involved in this. And I understand, obviously, that does not mean the individuals who are victimized in this situation, but come to a resolution and determine who will be involved in the actual investigation, I think is appropriate. Thank you.
Last speaker, speaker against.
Yeah, I can do it without a mic. I feel strongly that we need to get this investigation underway immediately. I would prefer that we, as a body tonight, come up with a panel to conduct this investigation immediately. We've raised, what, 7,000 out of a 20,000 that we were supposed to in these 2 months. We're taking on water right now, and we need to get this resolved as quickly as possible. And waiting for people who have been adversaries up until this point to come together to create a panel seems like just a way to delay it even further. So I'd much prefer to name the people for this investigative committee tonight.
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
That concludes debate. Point of what?
Information.
All right, go ahead.
Would there be anything, and it's a question for the chair or the maker of the motion, would there be anything prohibiting the two sides from appointing those folks right now?
I would not understand there to be any prohibition.
Thank you.
Right. Now, that concludes debate. Just to remind you, this is an amendment to the amendment. Whether or not this fails or passes, there will then be further debate potential with respect to the amendment, and then when we dispose of that amendment, we still may have a motion to deal with. All right, what is before you is amending the proposed amendment to specify that the 5 people who would carry out the actions specified by the amendment would consist of 2 people appointed by Chair Stover, 2 people appointed by the current vice chairs, and the resulting 4 people would appoint the 5th person. If you vote in favor of that, then that will amend the amendment and we'll take up the amendment. If you vote against it, we'll take up the amendment with the specification that this group is going to appoint the 5 people. All of those in favor of the amendment to the amendment, please raise your card. And can we count? I'm going to depend on the 2 of you because I did not get a count before people started thinking.
Jamie, do you get me? Nobody. He did.
I already counted Mark, so that's my side. Get off.
Well done.
Nope, that's you.
Did you get that one back there?
Got me.
No, this is my side.
Did you get those?
Go back. Your side of the door. All right.
Can the 2 of you confer and make sure you know the total before I ask for the opposition? I mean, you don't have to tell me, just make sure that you...
11 for me on this side.
Now, all of those opposed, please raise your card.
Opposed to what?
Opposed to the amendment to the amendment.
Okay. Oh, all right. Okay. Where you counting? Where you counting?
From here.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, the vote was 27 in favor, 19 against. The amendment to the amendment carries. We're now back to the amendment. I'm not going to restate the amendment for the 17th time unless somebody actually needs me to. Is there further debate on Gloria's amendment as amended? Julie?
I'd like to move the amendment to also include an investigation into the leaks of confidential information from the investigation.
Oh, come on, that's
yeah.
the second
Third.
I'd like to add as the 4th charge panel to investigate the leaks of confidential material from the investigation.
Second.
Yes.
All right, there is a proposed amendment to add a 4th item to the scope of investigation that the 5 individuals would do, and that 4th item would be to investigate and determine, if possible, how confidential information from the original investigation was leaked. Is that the substance of what you? All right. Debate is now open on that amendment to the amendment. Speaker, do you want to speak in favor of your amendment before?
Or would you give her back the microphone?
Take the microphone, then we'll all change the debate.
Still considering the motion. Just got like 2 minutes.
Microphone's such a rare request for me.
David, the doorman says.
One of the things that's been most destructive to our party about this whole unfortunate situation is that confidential information prematurely from an unfinished investigation was leaked to the press. It has hurt all of us out in the field, our fundraising, our relationships with our members, our donors, our supporters, our allies. This also needs to be investigated.
I'm going to take, unless there's objection, I'm going to ask you to limit it to 1 speaker against this because because we may be thrown out of the room. So,
Point of order, Mr. Chair. We're just notified by the building. We have 10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes. So.
Just a point of clarification. I'm completely in agreement that we do that. However, my question is, are we only investigating whether Bailey leaked it, or
The motion before you, if this amendment were to pass, is that group of 5 people also investigate and determine, if they can, who leaked information from the original investigation. It's not. There's no suggestion as to who did it. Just the obvious fact that there was a leak of some kind. Now,
which one are you going to count on?
Second row, and then we'll see how much. Yeah.
I don't see how this is going to effectively happen with whoever is appointed. I do not see an easy way to figure this out. We're not going to hire a private investigator. I don't want to burden those 5 people who are investigating serious charges with also turning into Seamuses who have to figure out who leaked the documents. The harm, fine, but we can also make the people do that. It is going to be a very difficult and specialized task to do that. I'd like them to just investigate the original charges and finish that investigation and let us get on with this.
All right. Unless there is strong objection, I'm going to move to a vote on the amendment. On the amendment to the amendment, we probably have about 8 minutes left in this room.
Can you state it, please?
Yes. The amendment to the amendment is to add a 4th scope to the investigation that the 5 people would do, and the 4th scope would be to investigate and determine, to the extent they can, who leaked confidential information from the first investigation. All of those in favor of that amendment to the amendment, please raise your credentials. And can I have the counters count?
Well, they're really pushing us. So.
Alex. 3, Sharon.
Jamie, I'm on your side.
Oh, sorry. I thought Chris was
7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
All right, are you ready for the count again?
17.
Okay, all right. All those who are opposed, please raise your credentials.
Now, 1, 2.
Are you voting? Excuse me. With the credential, are you voting? Hi. Hi. Are you voting? Okay. 5.
All right, the vote was 34 to 14. The amendment to the amendment passes. We're back to Gloria's amendment. Yes? Well, I'm not going to, is it a point of order? Otherwise, we've got about 6 minutes. All right, make the amendment, but understand we've got.
Since we've chosen to add a separate investigation for the first investigation, I would like to move the scope is increased to cover the leaking of the video to YouTube, which only one person had access to.
rather than take a vote on that, I'm going to suggest that the leaking of confidential information in connection with the investigation is a broad enough subject to cover that if the 5 people want to do it. Now, let's go back to the amendment that Gloria made that has been amended. There's been sufficient debate on it. I'm going to take a vote. All of those in favor of amending the main motion as specified by Gloria, please raise your cards.
Are you voting?
What are we voting on?
The amendment, Gloria, made. 9. You're done. I don't.
All right, all of those who are opposed, please raise your cards.
1, 2, 3.
I'm sorry.
You can put them down now.
5. All right, that was 35 to 8. The amendment carries. Now we have to vote on the main motion as amended, which is
Approved by acclamation, the first motion by Ken Aldenberg.
as amended by you.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. All of those in favor of adopting the main motion as originally stated by Ken, but amended by Gloria's amendment that we just voted on, please raise your card.
Acclamation?
Just take the vote.
6, 7, 8, 9.
As amended by Gloria.
We're now voting on yeah, we're voting on the main motion plus investigating everything.
When I get up
Roger, are you voting?
Are investigating
Were you voting?
All of those opposed, please raise your card.
1, 2, 3.
It passes 40 to 4. That motion has been adopted. Is there further business for this meeting? Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I would move to request that you continue your services presiding over all of these issues in the future until they are resolved.
Second.
And I move to call the question.
I think it was something along the lines of what W.C. Fields said, if it wasn't for the tar and feathers, I'd appreciate the free water. And actually, there is one additional piece of business. Subject to further amendment. This investigation needs an end date, otherwise it will carry on forever.
Yes.
And may I suggest that people need to be appointed within the next 72 hours.
Yes.
And that they need to produce a report at least 7 days before the next meeting of this body, so that it can be included in the notice, if not sooner. But just to make sure that there's a date so that this has to move.
May I request, Mr. Chair, that while we appoint our people, that we copy you as a neutral party on the email so you know it is being done in a timely fashion by both sides.
You can certainly send me an email whether I read it.
Move to adjourn.
Is there? I take it there was no objection to those dates being added into the motion. All right, those dates stand as the dates. Is there motion to adjourn was made?
Move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Wow. Hopefully the press will tell us more about this tomorrow, because I was actually having a hard time following along at the end. The motion that just passed, Tara, did you catch the motion at the end?
The final one?
Yeah, what's the final motion?
The final motion is that the
Hello. The final motion is that the 4 investigators, 2 appointed by Bailey, 2 appointed by the vice chairs, be appointed within 72 hours, and their report be made 7 days before the next general meeting, which therefore is approximately 3 weeks? 3 weeks plus a little slop, yeah, because the next meeting will be 4th Tuesday of March. So actually, this is February, so there's no slop, 3 weeks.
All right, so that's that, and we've got to go home now. We're getting kicked out. They're turning off the lights. So we will follow up as we can tomorrow. Also, remember, tomorrow we're going to be at a Flip the 8th meeting, and I will post some details about that either later tonight or tomorrow afternoon before I leave. Bye!